All right, this is the Oz report, and we're back. I'm back in Germany. It's August 9th, and we're going to talk about the EVE markets for 10 minutes. Before I do that, I want to quickly do a public service announcement, and that is the skill training boost bundles in the EVE store are currently 50% off. And that means that these bundles that are typically only foolproof for 80 million skill point plus characters. So for them, it's always a great value. But right now, at 50% off, they're a massive value for almost anyone, especially the lower ones. These apprentice bundle and the novice bundle, they're really, 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 really good value. And at 50% off, you really can't go wrong. These are one time only purchase per account. If you do buy them, please use the creator code Oz in the EVE store, and I get a revenue shares to support the channel. But so if you're in the market right now to buy skill points specifically, then check out the boost bundles in the EVE store because they're 50% off. That is a pretty good value. Now, let's look at the market. So overall, let's start with Plex and Plex adjacent items, and we can actually do that in here. So Plex, you all know that Plex is now in a global market, so we don't really have any history here in the client. But since it was implemented in the middle of July, we've seen a pretty consistent drop in Plex prices. Yes, we've also seen pretty consistent sales going on. With a 20% off sale in the NES, we had a sale in the EVE store. We also had the regular Omega bundles now, including Plex until yesterday, I think. So overall, there's been a lot of effort by CCP to drop the Plex price, not only through the global Plex market, but also through sales. And now what we're seeing is a Plex price that is unlike anything we've seen in a long time, because we have a sale price of 5.7 million and we have a buy price of 5.4 million on the global market. So that is very, very low. So if you're in the market for Plex, rejoice. Let's see what the next New Eden store sale does to this, because we haven't seen a massive sale since the introduction of the global Plex market. But we have seen a dev blog come out that basically said that CCP wants to do less FOMO and less gamification around the monetization of ETH. So let's see if they can actually deliver on that. And that would also mean, no more massive sales on the New Eden store that make you pull out spreadsheets to take the best advantage of Omega and Plex pricing and extractor pricing, etc. So overall, Plex is trending downwards, but we'll see how it holds up if there's a new massive New Eden store sale coming, which used to send the Plex price in a spiral. But so far, so good. Cheaper Plex. Cheaper Plex also means cheaper skill injectors. So cheaper Plex means that skill farms can run their skill farms much, much cheaper, and especially in combination with the skill extractor prices that still haven't recovered from the massive 2-for-1 sale in March or in April. This means that overall it's much, much cheaper now to produce large skill injectors. Combine that with a 50% off the skill bundles right now on the real cash store. There's really not much hope for large skill injectors to come up if you're still holding out for that. For everyone else using skill injectors, I guess this is good news. Skill injectors or skill points haven't been this cheap in a very, very long time. And it seems that a lot of the things that CCP has been implementing has been driving Plex prices down and skill injector prices down. And so overall, it's cheaper on average for players to play EVE Online and for players to acquire skill points. Now, let's move back to my market dashboard. So that's Plex and Plex adjacent items. What we're seeing overall is we're seeing a pretty significant drop in salvage material prices. We were talking about that on stream earlier. So we see a 10% drop in tier 1 salvage materials and almost a 10% drop in tier 2 salvage materials as well. Part of that is because the moves that we were talking about 3 weeks ago in my last Oz report, the large alliances moving this is now done. They're much more moving into crabbing again. They're also not having to replace structure rigs on a massive scale. So certainly, more salvage entering the system, less demand in the system, and so overall salvage prices are very, very, very cheap if you're looking at it overall. Certainly, also we saw a pretty big buff to exploration sites in July. So more people doing exploration is probably a safe bet, and also that is going to drive salvage prices down, or at least not up. It's going to be a good or a boost on the supply side, certainly. Speaking of boost to exploration, we're seeing the molecular forging tools down another 14% and advanced protective technology down 17%. Those are that's the exploration loot for ship hulls, especially capital ships. They introduced that in that latest patch. It's been a few weeks now, but since I haven't streamed a lot since then, we haven't covered this in detail. But if you're looking at the patch from July 17th, we're seeing ghost sites have been reduced in difficulty. They're now dropping more of these capital components that I was talking about, and also these components now have a lower volume, and that means that they're more lucrative to actually loot and take, and you can take more of them. And so there are a lot of roadblocks were removed. The last one specifically because I collected your feedback from the community and gave it to the CSM, and I think immediately they turned around and actually implemented it in the next exploration patch. So I'm very happy that these changes have been made. And having said that, that's had a massive impact on the pricing here. So you're seeing that advanced protective technology and molecular forging tools that weeks and months ago, these were still 50-60% higher, have been dropping. And you're seeing that actually on the trending down section of my Oz report dashboard this week. You're seeing nanoscale filter plates down 28%, nano regulation gates down 26%. You're seeing counter subversion sensor arrays down 23%. These are all coming from these ghost sites, and they're being looted on a much higher scale, that they're more easily transported, and so more supply is hitting the market, and that means they're not acting as much as a bottleneck anymore in the production of dreads and other capital ships. And so this is a very, very positive move that I was pushing for, and that I think is going to be a very positive push for not only for the economy, but for industrialists building these ships and alliances using these ships and individuals using these ships in battle, and making them a little bit more affordable to build and replace. So overall, I think a good good week, or a good few weeks for EVE Online. Somebody in chat is asking about the liquidity of these. So if you look at the liquidity here, molecular forging tools, we have 3.8 trade days available of molecular forging tools, and we have 2.6 trade days available. So still not a ton of them available in the market, but they're trading at 20 to 30% above average. So there's a lot more hitting the market and trading, and these are slowly their availability is increasing, but these are nowhere near abundant right now. They're still being bought as quickly as they're being supplied into the market, and which is a very, very good sign. That means that this was a very much needed change in the economy from my point of view. Right. So we talked about Plex. We've talked about advanced protective technology. One other thing I want to mention here, we talked about this earlier as well. Somebody mentioned in chat, Athenor is up 20%. That is because, as I mentioned, several alliances have moved. They're going back. Especially goons have actually arrived now. they're going into crabbing mode. They're going into moon mining. They're buying these Athenor. So certainly there's more of a demand on these structures, driving their price up. If we're looking on the short supply side, so what is not available in the market, with what has the fewest trade days available, we're seeing here the mid-grade Crystal Omegas leading the pack with just 0.2 trade days available, but especially the low-key here. The low-key, 0.3 trade days available, very much in high demand. 57% of available low-keys were bought out this week. So this is a massive drop in supply there. If you're able to supply the market in low-keys, then you're definitely needed right now. Cryoprotected solutions down 75%. That means people are building implants, especially these are used for implants. And raging gamma filaments are the popular filament in abyssal space currently right now, because 75% of them were bought out as well. If we're looking at overall what's underpriced, and underpriced here doesn't mean that they are per se underpriced. It just means that the price that the item is currently trading at is most below monthly average. And the reason for most of these are patches. So if you look at the metamolecular combiner, for example, these have dropped 70% in price. But that's because they're molecular forging tools and they've been introduced into the exploration sites at a much higher level, and that's why they're crashing in price. This is not only people are looting these a lot from exploration sites, but also people that were holding onto these for strategic reasons or for investment reasons, they are dropping these now also onto the market because we're realizing that the supply is rising and their investment is dropping in price. So this is a double whammy of speculators dropping their items onto the market, but also the economy itself supplying more materials. All right, I think that's where we leave it this week. So we're back in Germany. We're going to be summer break is over. We're going to be releasing Oz reports every week again, and live streams again every Saturday as usual. So feel free to join us on the live stream, or let's see you next week on the Oz report. We'll go back to the regular stream. Bye-bye.